Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're diving into a story that's as chilling as it is tragic. It's the tale of two sisters, Catherine and Margaret Flanagan, who turned their home into a house of horrors. Buckle up, because this is a ride you won't forget. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more true crime stories. In the late 1800 seconds, two sisters, Catherine and Margaret Flanagan, stepped off a boat onto the bustling docks of Liverpool. They had left their homeland of Ireland, crossing the Irish Sea with hearts full of dreams and eyes sparkling with hope. They were seeking a new life, a fresh start in a city that promised opportunities. They soon became landladies, opening the doors of their modest home to people who were, like them, searching for a better life. They welcomed lodgers with warm smiles and open arms, creating what seemed like a sanctuary in a harsh world. But behind those welcoming smiles and beneath the surface of their seemingly ordinary lives, a dark and sinister plot was brewing. A plot so shocking, it would send ripples of horror through the community and earn them a grim nickname that Liverpool would never forget. Even with a house bustling with lodgers, the sisters found themselves sinking deeper and deeper into the quicksand of poverty. The weight of financial struggle was a constant burden, pressing down on them like a dark cloud that refused to lift. Bills piled up, mouths were hard to feed, and the walls of their homes seemed to close in on them. In this desperate corner of their lives, they stumbled upon something, a glimmer of hope in their otherwise bleak existence. They discovered burial societies. These humble, community-driven life insurance groups. To many, these societies were a safety net, a communal pot where everyone chipped in to help families in their darkest hours. But to Catherine and Margaret, they appeared as something else entirely, a lifeline, a way out of their financial abyss. It was a discovery that would not just change their lives, but would also cast a long, dark shadow over the lives of those who crossed their threshold. In a room dimly lit by the flickering candlelight, Catherine and Margaret sat across from each other, their eyes meeting in a moment that would seal their fates forever. The air was thick, not just with desperation but with a chilling resolve. They had found a way out of their financial misery, but the cost was unimaginable. They hatched a plan so dark, so morally twisted, that it defies human comprehension. It was a plan that would turn mothers into monsters and sanctuaries into slaughterhouses. They decided to kill, not for revenge, not for jealousy, but for something as cold and hard as the coins they so desperately needed, money. And the first name on their grim list was not a stranger, not a distant acquaintance, but someone who had come from Catherine's own flesh and blood, her son, John. A young man of 22, full of life and unaware that the two women he trusted the most were plotting his end. It was a decision that would forever extinguish the light in Catherine's eyes as a mother and replace it with the cold glint of a predator. Imagine being John Flanagan, a young man of 22, waking up one morning feeling the invincibility of youth coursing through your veins. You have your whole life ahead of you. But then, you start to feel unwell. Your body aches, your head spins, and a sense of dread envelops you. You look into your mother's eyes, seeking comfort, not knowing that those very eyes had watched you as she laced your meal with a deadly poison, arsenic. As John's life force ebbed away, Catherine, his mother, the woman who had brought him into this world, watched with a chilling detachment. Her maternal instincts had been overridden by a dark, insatiable greed. And then, John was gone. The life snuffed out before it had truly begun. The house was filled with the wails of mourning. But behind Catherine's veil of tears was a calculating mind already counting the money she would soon collect. Without missing a beat, Catherine went to the burial society. Her face a mask of grief but her heart devoid of sorrow. She collected the insurance money, setting a grim and horrifying precedent. It was as if she had traded her son's soul for a few pieces of silver. Picture this: Margaret, dressed in her wedding gown, standing beside Thomas Higgins, one of their lodgers. They exchange vows, promising to love and cherish each other till death do them part. But little did Thomas know, death was lurking much closer than he could ever imagine. The household seemed to be filled with a newfound joy, a semblance of normalcy. But this was a house where happiness came to die. Soon after the wedding, Thomas's innocent 8-year-old daughter, Mary, started showing symptoms eerily similar to those John had exhibited. Her small body weakened rapidly, her eyes losing their youthful sparkle. And just like that, she was gone. But the sisters didn't stop there. Another lodger, a young woman named Margaret Jennings, who was just 16 and full of dreams, became their next target. She too fell mysteriously ill, her life extinguished before she could even grasp the breadth of her own potential. And as the community mourned, Margaret and Catherine were already at the burial society's door, their hands outstretched, ready to collect yet another payout. Their faces were the epitome of sorrow, but their eyes told a different story, a story of cold calculation and an insatiable greed that knew no bounds. Imagine living in a neighborhood where doors are often left unlocked, where everyone knows each other's names, and where community is the backbone of daily life. Now, imagine the whispers that start to circulate when one house on the block becomes a revolving door of death. That's exactly what happened in the Liverpool community where Catherine and Margaret lived. People started talking, gossiping at the local markets, in the pubs, and even in the churches. "Have you heard about the Flanagan sisters?" they'd ask, their voices tinged with a mix of concern and morbid curiosity. "Something's not right over there. Too many funerals, too many tears." But it was the death of Thomas Higgins that really set the alarm bells ringing. Thomas, a man who had married into this web of deceit, was suddenly gone, just 2 days of illness, and he was no more. His brother Patrick, devastated by the loss, couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong. Unlike others, he couldn't dismiss it as bad luck or coincidence. His gut told him this was something darker, something evil. So, fueled by a brotherly love and a desperate need for the truth, Patrick took it upon himself to dig deeper. He wasn't just mourning, he was investigating, turning his grief into action. And little did he know, his quest for answers would be the catalyst that would unravel the sisters' twisted tale. Patrick Higgins was a man torn between grief and suspicion, a man grappling with the loss of a brother and the unsettling feeling that something far more sinister was at play. He couldn't just sit back and accept the narrative that his brother had died of natural causes. No, his intuition screamed otherwise, and he listened. With a heavy heart, he walked into the coroner's office, his hands trembling as he requested a full autopsy of his late brother. It was a difficult decision, one that felt like betraying a loved one's memory, but it was a necessary evil. He needed to know the truth, no matter how ugly or unsettling it might be. When the autopsy results came back, Patrick's worst fears were confirmed. Traces of arsenic were found in Thomas's body. His heart sank, his stomach churned, but there was also a grim sense of validation. He had been right. His suspicions were not just the ramblings of a grieving mind. He immediately alerted the police, his voice tinged with a mix of sorrow and urgency. As he handed over the autopsy report, he knew he had just pulled the first thread that would unravel the dark tapestry of lies and deceit the sisters had so carefully woven. The walls were closing in on Catherine and Margaret, and their dark secret was beginning to see the light of day. The atmosphere was thick with tension as police officers walked into the dimly lit pub where Catherine and Margaret were drowning their sorrows. The moment their eyes met, Catherine's heart skipped a beat. She knew the jig was up. In a desperate act of self-preservation, she bolted out of the pub, her funeral attire fluttering behind her like a dark omen. Margaret, however, was not so lucky, or perhaps not so quick. She was apprehended on the spot, her face a mask of disbelief and dread. As she was led away in handcuffs, the gravity of their actions began to sink in. The game was over. Catherine's run from justice was short-lived. A vigilant woman, who had unknowingly harbored her as a lodger, recognized her and turned her in. When the sisters were finally reunited, it was in the cold, unforgiving confines of a jail cell. The trial that followed was nothing short of sensational. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation and revulsion. As the evidence was laid bare, the sisters' faces turned ashen. Traces of arsenic in multiple bodies, insurance claims filed with indecent haste, and a web of lies that was finally untangled. The jury didn't take long to reach a verdict, guilty on all counts. The sisters were sentenced to death, their fate sealed by their own insidious actions. As the judge announced the sentence, a chilling silence fell over the courtroom. Justice, it seemed, had finally caught up with the Black Widows of Liverpool. As the sun rose on March 3, 1884, Catherine and Margaret Flanagan took their final steps together, not as sisters in life, but as partners in death. The noose tightened, and in that final moment, one can only wonder if they felt any remorse for the lives they had stolen. As their bodies swung lifelessly, the crowd that had gathered felt a mix of relief and horror. Justice had been served, but at what cost? Their names would forever be etched in the annals of criminal history as the Black Widows of Liverpool, a chilling testament to the depths of human depravity. Thank you for joining me on this harrowing journey into the abyss of the human soul. If this story sent shivers down your spine as it did mine, please give this video a like. And if you're as fascinated by the dark corners of humanity as I am, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Until we meet again, stay vigilant and stay safe. The world is full of mysteries, and not all of them have happy endings.